Ian Glenn has starred in so many big productions: Downton Abbey, the Resident Evil films, Kingdom of Heaven, The Iron Lady, and of course, he has spent 8 years as Ser Jorah Mormont in the biggest show on TV, HBO's Game of Thrones. Now, you hear a lot of chat about Game of Thrones, including some exclusive behind-the-scenes details about next year's much-anticipated final season. But we also talk about his latest project, the third series of Sky One's Delicious. And we began by discussing the importance of family.
It's funny, things change. To be honest, mate. With over the years, when you start out, I left RADA and kind of late 80s, and you just have one concern, and that is just to try and get on in this weird, tricky business, and that was my focus. And every job that I got felt like a great gift and a blessing. People were willing to pay me to do this thing that I discovered that I just really enjoyed and that I wanted to get better at. And it was my raison d'etre, really. And then, things change and you become slightly less self-absorbed, I suppose, and family are a great thing for that. And the as you know, the love of a child is altruistic in its nature, different from the love we have for our partners or our wives. And I adore my wife and always will. But in a way, it's the love of a kid that teaches you to love an adult better, in a way. So that's the great leveler, I suppose. And time changes things, and you get used to suddenly, getting jobs that you wanted to do. Felt, it was more of a, people have actors have this fact. Around Judi Dench famous says, I'm just waiting for people to find me out, and you always have that element as an actor, that sense that someone's going to come along and say, you're crap. Actually, no, you're not going to get employed anymore because I've just seen enough.
So much in rejection in your game, isn't there? I mean,
there is.
Grief. At the beginning of your career, it's just rejection after rejection, and it's cold and
it's
brutal.
It's brutal, yeah, it is. It's very exposing as well, because it's sort of, at least as a painter or someone, there's the canvas, and that's what you do, and people can say, no, I don't like that picture, but it's not quite so totally you as you are as an actor, because that's what you're presenting people with. So the rejection does feel very harsh, yeah.
So how was the conversation with your agent? I've tried to imagine what this went like for the first series of Delicious, where it goes, I got some good news, I got some bad news.
Well, in a funny way, because of the nature, it was good news in the sense that if you're on screen, you want to be on screen, and that's and part of the dynamic of that first season was that you died unexpectedly, but. And then the idea always was that would promote this voice from beyond the grave, and this narration that could have a flavour that was different from the normal voiceover, which you kind of have to be a bit suspicious of as an actor. When I see scripts with a lot of voiceover, I think something's fishy, because somehow the writer has not managed to bury.
Right, of course.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that kind of where
absolutely.
You can't get subtexture. You have to take and inform an audience of what's going on a voiceover, and that's sometimes the case. But with this one, it's a slightly different flavour, because I suppose, and I was thinking about this on the way on the bicycle, but anyone who's unfortunate enough to have come close or to anyone with a terminal illness or something, I think kind of one quality that it's, sorry to get a bit unnecessarily profound, but that, it makes, I think, people, friends who I have, makes you see life in a slightly different way, and it makes you, that just that finite nature of life makes colours everything more vivid, and it just completely spins the way you perceive life, because we all know our life's finite, but we don't really know it until we get close to death.
We don't accept it.
Yeah, we don't accept it.
No.
And somehow when that happens, it puts a very different perspective on everything, how we perceive, and without being too earnest about it. What the voiceover has is this quality of the people who my character loved, my ex-wife, who both I'd been unfaithful to, and then unexpectedly died. But I care for them greatly. I love them a great deal, and I want what's best for them. I can't affect their fate. I can't change what happens, but I'm a voice of observation and information, which allows a kind of quality to it, which is different, and I think quite insightful. And I think the writing is quite insightful about people and how they behave, and relationships and families, and how we deal with the stuff of life. And so it was good news, really. I enjoyed doing it, and I love narrating. It doesn't require a great deal of me in terms of film days. Yeah. And I'm concentrated into it, and then I'm
so you
summoned.
Get to be a husband and a dad.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
and I'm sort of summoned by those in the drama, within the drama, at moments of crisis or joy or unexpectedly, and I come in front of the camera to sort of be with them in different concepts. There's no overriding conceit that says must be this. We've sort of played with it over the course of the different seasons, and so I love it, and I love them. Dawn's a fantastic lady, and Amelia's gorgeous. Enjoy working so much with them.
Sheila Hancock, what's it like? What did you? I guess did you learn anything from being in the presence of Sheila?
Sheila's great. She's just a wise old bird. You know, she's very, she's very funny. She's very dry. She doesn't suffer fools gladly, and in a good way. She's very, she'll, if the line doesn't feel right for it, she'll want to understand it and make it work for her. We actually always stayed in the same place when we were down there, so I saw more of Sheila, because Dawn's living at home, and Amelia had a kid, and she's there all the time, so rents a place down there. So I really very fond of Sheila. She's a lovely lady and has experienced an amazing amount of life. I'm kind of fascinated. My favourite programme in the world is Just a Minute, so I'm so intrigued by that. I try it myself. So Could you do Just a Minute? Would you be good at that?
No. Oh God, what a repetition! No, not at all.
You would have failed 6 times in a row.
Vocal tics that we have.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
so difficult and to be able to sort of self-monitor, but not self-monitor, not to the sense that you're fluid and articulate, and your ideas can move on, but be monitoring enough so you don't make those silly errors and agony. I love it.
Well, you're fluid and articulate with other people's words.
That's it, which is a kind of it's a funny thing. I think that some people, it's like, Christmas charades. Oh, you be the captain, you're good at it, you'll love this. No, I don't really, not when it's my own words, not when I have to sort of be me. That's the gift of, and actors are bereft without those fine words. That sort of shows whenever we try to improvise or find things through improvisation. The improvisation can be really good in certain circumstances, but often it just betrays how much we need a writer to write things that are worth hearing. And that natural way with a writer doing his work, actors coming in and spinning it, conducted by a director, is the best way to make good drama. So as an actor, you're a conduit. It's not you, and I really don't enjoy the red carpet side of the business. But that's what you play the game.
What has been the most unexpected kind of side effect of being in the world's biggest TV show? Because there's all the expected ones, because you've been in this game long enough to understand fame and celebrity and etc. But was there anything that was really unexpected that you hadn't foreseen?
No, just how it manifests itself, I suppose. I mean, people have if you were in something on the telly particularly, people have quite short memories of it. And you'll be out and about and on tube and before Thrones came along, and say, oh yeah, sorry, that was whatever, and people are generally kind. When Thrones came along, just the magnitude, just the global reach of this TV series, meaning that you cannot step, into any country literally in the world without being recognised is it's just a very strange sensation. It's a different way of, going about. Yeah, you can't really be in public spaces and pass through them without, being your journey being arrested all the time. And it's, how much it means to people. People are incredibly.
You have to keep that in mind, don't you? Which can be, look, if you've had a bad day, you're a human being, right?
Yeah.
But then, yes, exactly what you say, to people. I think there was a great anecdote you said about a woman in an airport, an elderly woman, who asked you to.
Should I say it?
Yes, go on.
Well, no, it was just so odd, and you get used to, as I say, when you're passing through groups of people's physicality, and I felt something off this lady as I passed her. I went to grab a coffee, and as I passed her back on the return journey, she said, "Hello." I said, "Hello. Yeah, can I ask you a favor?" And I went, "Yeah, sure. Can you just look me in the eye and say Khaleesi?" And I went, "Khaleesi?" She said, "Thank you so much. Thank you." Thank you. And I said, "Oh, that's no problem. Nice to meet you." But you were right. It's a sort of, typical of, the effect, just the effect that it has on people. And it's a good effect. I wouldn't begrudge it, honestly. The only time if I'm with my kids and I'm very, involved with what we're doing. I mean, anytime really I'm with my kids, that doesn't feel right to people for. I don't know why. I'm a bit precious by that, but I would never. I hope.
I think protective is the word you're looking for, rather than precious.
Exactly.
Yes,
I'm the dad, and that's all. And
they didn't buy into this, right?
No,
I mean,
they didn't.
These are the choices you've made.
Exactly. No, I've got an older boy who's 22 now. Hope I've got that right. And he is completely disinterested. Pretty disinterested in my acting, and I've always really liked that. Because I just feel I'm his dad, and and that was during the last 10 years where Thrones were at its, it's growing. So all his friends, everything, all the time, Jorah's son, it was cool. I liked that.
I quite liked reading about, you said when we gathered for reading the scripts right at the beginning, there was a huge sense the writers had done a fantastic job. And I tried to place myself in that room and what it feels like, especially when you're opening scripts for that last series and the burden of expectation that is upon you all. If you can put into words the title is on the front of the page, and then you go into the first page and then you start to read about where you are and who you are. What does that feel like?
It feels really, it feels a very, a rare and a special thing this far down the line of the Thrones journey. And this season was the first season ever that we sat and read the entire arc of the story from beginning to end right through over the course of a day.
How many of you in the room?
I would say at least 100.
My gosh.
I would say
the energy must have been extraordinary.
It was extraordinary, and everyone round one. Well, all the cast around one long oval table, and then everyone else round and the directors, and then everyone else sort of around the outskirts of the room. And
were the chairs kind of grandiose and skulls on them or anything?
No. Very
simple. Disappointing chairs then.
Very disappointing chairs. Just that number of chairs, to be able to find that number of chairs. They were simple. They were
game of folding chairs.
Exactly. IKEA's best. But
so as these words come out and someone says something and then someone says something. It just builds and builds.
It just builds, and we had got the scripts because they're absolutely paranoid now about anyone finding out anything about the series and spoiling it.
Of course.
So it's really, there was nothing left on a page for the entire season we shot. You weren't allowed a written word on a page. Everything was accessed through sort of
What do you mean? Like
you
watermarked digital?
The iPad, with different security you had to get through to access it, and then which caused a problem for the actors, I have to say. You have a process, and sometimes, you just like to refer to it in the way. But we found a way, either on phones or with pads or different ways, for it to be available on set. So anyway, there's a huge security around it. We'd all been actually only just read it, or actually Kit, if he wasn't lying, had not read it. So he was reading it on that day for the first time to find out what took place.
Sorry, but then at which point then will you film? What's the time lapse between him seeing your words and then you film it?
Well, it varies. It can be anything from, the earliest would have been about 2 weeks to about, 6 months, depending on the order of which they're shooting stuff, So... there was a little bit of...
Were there any jaw-dropping moments when those hundreds of you were in that room?
Yeah.
There were bits where you just there was a sharp intake of breath, you could hear it.
Yeah, there were, absolutely. I mean, listen, I'd say it, but honestly, these 6 episodes are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the writers really, really came up trumps, I think, in terms of sort of just completing storylines, but leaving things sort of, a huge beep 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 currently going off in my head.
Yeah, for sure. Don't worry.
Don't worry. But
I'm not a Jedi. I can't get this stuff out of you.
Exactly. But no, phenomenal. The way they pulled it all together, and a real writing task. My God, I think Dan and David really needed each other. I think they'd say that as writers, when you're kind of dealing with that, just to have the other to bounce off and find ways. But it all just, it's wonderful. But honestly, there were a lot of tears that day. There were a lot of kind of, and it's been a season of that, because it's been a season of farewells and finishes and coming around. We've all got to see it out. We'll, come next April, we'll do the premieres and we'll sell it and stuff. And every time we see each other, we'll have that major association. Honestly, the bottom line is that in terms of that, I'm just really happy to have been in this series, which has, touched so many people and
millions
globally. And I just, that's just luck. It could have been another actor, and all of us, that you could recast it. I think it would have done pretty well with a different bunch of actors. I think we were good for what we did. Absolutely. I'm not saying that, but the whole beast is bigger than any of us, and that's partly the reason people adore Thrones. Is its major production value. It doesn't really come any bigger, and people forget. Well, maybe they do anyway. That the ideas, the originator was George R. Martin, somebody who wrote these books with a sense of no limits to his imagination, no limits to his landscapes, his characters, his storylines, just deeply imaginative, kind of varied world that he generated, which then had to pass through the process of finding 2 writers who were going to turn that into dialogue on a page. And make it work.
People like you.
And then we come in.
To bring it alive, to understand it. Because Sir Jorah Mormont is such a fascinatingly fragile, strong, weak, loving... He's a great... You must have enjoyed playing him so much.
I honestly so did. Thank you for that. I did. And I think the writers, without being too clever, but I think after a season or 2, got to know their actors, and I think they sort of wrote for their actors. They've said that on different storylines. They evolved in good ways. I mean, one example is I think Jorah never got grayscale in the books, and that was an idea that was taken in that concertinaing that by necessity they had to do with those novels to put them into this set of characters. And there's a saturation point as well. I think as writers, they realized they could not cope with the full scope of the book. So decisions had to be made, and they worked with us to complicate us and use our qualities, I think, to some degree. You were talking about those scripts earlier, but the first thing all actors, I kid you not, would do when the scripts came through is get to that first page where they have the cast list and say, yeah, I'm in it. Yeah, I'm still alive. Yeah, I'm in it. I'm still alive. And just flick through the first page of every single script and just oh, why am I not there? Oh yeah, I'm back. I'm back. So sort of thing. And just to see what gifts they've given you this time, you know.
Do you feel as though you've been given gifts this time?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. They're
because the love for Daenerys that you convey on screen is so tragic and beautiful.
Well, thank you, and you know, it's I think part of the reason I enjoy
and fragile, of course.
Yeah, that Jorah is he sort of, you know, he is kind of almost, if it's possible, to be slightly of an earlier era than the era that it's taking place, but he's got sort of, I don't know, age-old noble qualities, something about him, but flawed. You know, he's a flawed man, and
who isn't in that?
Yeah,
cast
who isn't exactly?
And his initial,
his initial motive was suspect, but then we sort of got to know him. We sort of got to know that he, you know, just really had a profound love for her and wanted well for her. So, in the world, the contrasting world of Thrones, I've always been very glad that I've had a chance to play that. Are you a Thrones fan? Do you enjoy it?
Huge, my God. Yeah. My God, I mean, it's obsessed. I mean, come April, it's just going to be, can you just not contact me in April? Like, no, I might take April off 5 Live, actually. I'll just take it off so I can just spend time like catching up. And then I just kind of realised I've devoted 70 hours of my life to this.
Yes, well, that's the thing.
You've obviously devoted a lot more than I have, but I mean, wow.
I know. Well, it's true. People sort of say, oh, well, I've never watched it. I say, oh, that's cool. I do warn them, if you want to take that step, you have 80 hours ahead of you. Yes. So, you know, do it with that knowledge.
When you finish it and the series finishes, do you kind of say to your agent, right, I need now to find separation from this so I don't become Jorah Mormont to everyone? Or are you quite happy with that and you understand it is what it is?
Yeah, it is what it is. And, you know, its reach is such that, you know, as all actors, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a degree of success, will have an association, doesn't matter what it is, you know. All actors done a great. Daniel Craig did a huge amount before he did Bond. He's a wonderful actor. He's done a huge body of work, variety, and all. But you know, people bump him to, oh, you're James Bond. No, it's not to that degree. But do you know what I mean? All of us. So that's the nature of what it is. The truth of it is that it's changed from the first season, and HBO were pretty cool initially about us doing all sorts of different things in and around it, as long as we turned up looking the same as when they last saw us. We're there in time to shoot. They were cool, and then sort of in the last 2 seasons they got stricter and stricter about us doing other stuff, and we had to get on our knees and ask permission, and there'd be no crossover. So, but the truth of it is, I'm sort of I think in some ways I'm not talking about the general public, but for the business or the people within it or directors or casting directors, I'd sort of done enough before Thrones came along to not be necessarily solely associated with that in terms of what people might perceive. To
your son's generation, on the other hand.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that was it. But so yeah, no, it's been fine. And what's been unusual about it, because it's very ephemeral by nature, acting is knowing that you're coming back to this thing, or hoping you will if they keep you alive, each year, and knowing that there's that body of the work. And you know, for somebody in my kind of, you know, now in my 50s, that's been a nice thing, a nice security. I've enjoyed that. It's also because I love doing it and I'm very proud of it. So it's lovely to know that you're going back to that. And then everything that you shoot around that, yeah, you look for contrast, you look for difference. But it's nice knowing that that's coming back, and it will be funny now that it's not.
Now, you might have caught Ian telling me how much he loves Radio 4's Just a Minute there. So we thought we'd have a little bit of fun with him, and we set him a bit of a challenge. You have to talk for 1 minute on Daenerys Targaryen without repetition, deviation, or hesitation. I'm going to do this to you, Ian.
You can try, but you know, what you have to do is try. You have to interrupt me and say beep the moment I get it wrong, which will be within the first 5 seconds.
No, I will do this. I will do this right. You have to talk for 1 minute on Daenerys Targaryen without repetition, deviation, or hesitation, starting from now.
Daenerys Targaryen is a silver-haired princess who was married to Khal Drogo in the first season of Game of Thrones, the monumental series of novels created by George R.R. Martin. She is perhaps the favourite for the viewers. Oh, I did really well. No, I didn't.
21 seconds in. You started off so well.
I did. I lost
so
faith. I lost belief in myself. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.